If you ever worked at an AT&T store, or any cell phone store for that matter, you know you deal with a lot of fraud. People come in with fake IDs and try to add a bunch of cell phone lines to accounts. They use other people's socials. It's a whole mess, but it's pretty common. I'd experienced so much fraud at the AT&T store I worked at that I felt like Sherlock Holmes detecting the fake IDs. And usually when you catch them, or call them out on their BS, they run away with their tails between their legs and never come back. But that wasn't always the case. I was working a mid-shift on a Monday. This young guy came in, maybe about 22. He came up to me and said he wanted to buy the newest iPhone and add it as a new line to his account. When I asked for his ID, I knew right away it was fake. For reference, this happened in Pennsylvania. This guy had an Alaskan driver's license. That doesn't necessarily mean he was fraud, but there was no transparent license picture behind the personal information, and the ID had square edges and not the roundness that a real ID had. Again, I had caught another fraudster. So I handed the ID back to him and told him that we cannot service him. His ID is fake. The guy didn't even bat an eye, or deny it, or run. He just stood there with this confident smile. He looked at my AT&T name tag and said, "You'll regret this." He then walked calmly out of the store, leaving his fake ID on the desk, only further proving that it was not real. I really didn't care. People threatened me all the time working in retail. Get used to it. I went about my shift normally, not knowing how much worse the situation was going to get. I got off work at 9 and made it home by 9:15. I was making a microwave dinner when I got a text message from a number that I did not recognize. I opened the text. It was a screenshot of an AT&T bill with my name, address, and apparently 9 lines with brand new phones. My heart sunk, and my mind immediately went to that fraudster. I tried not to panic. If this bill was real, that means he somehow gained access to my social security and home address. I decided to bluff. I sent a text message back to the number saying, "That's not my address. Better luck next time." A few seconds later, they replied, "Oh yeah?" Then I received a picture of the front of my house. I stared in horror as the picture sent to me was in real time. I sprinted to my front door and opened it. I scanned the streets, looking for the fraudster, terrified that he had all this information about me. I got another text from the number. It said, "Feel safe?" I decided that this was too much. I called the police. I showed them the AT&T bill, the pictures of my house, and told them about the fraud encounter earlier that day. The investigation is still ongoing. I called AT&T customer service and canceled all 9 lines that this guy opened in my name. It was a whole nightmare experience. And what's truly terrifying is how easily this guy got all my info. My social, my address, and my full name. Be careful out there, guys, because once your information is stolen, you never truly feel safe. I had worked for an AT&T retail store for over 5 years. I've seen my fair share of crazy customers, but this story takes the top spot. It was a slow Friday afternoon. It was just me and my manager at work that day. For context, I'm a female and was 23 at the time. One of our regulars came in, Shelby. She was someone who lived in a halfway house nearby. She came in often to refill her prepaid minutes onto her flip phone. I was helping her do just that. When I finished, I wrung her out and told her to have a good rest of her day. About 15 minutes after Shelby left, she came storming back in. She claimed that she couldn't make any phone calls or receive any text messages. I asked her if I could see her phone to help solve the issue, but she said no. Her voice started getting louder. She started to claim that I was ripping her off and stealing her hard-earned money. My manager had to come out from the back to try to help calm her down. but that didn't work either. She kept saying that we were stealing from her. That's when Shelby pulled out a razor blade from her back pocket. She sliced into both her wrists until she started bleeding all over the place. Freaked out, my manager and I ran to the back office. Shelby was trying to chase us with her bloody wrists, but we locked the door just in time. But here's where it gets even crazier. The ceiling we had in our AT&T store were fissured, pretty much removable. You could push away the square and be up into the ceiling in no time. And that's exactly what Shelby did. We heard her crawling around in our ceiling, trying to get into our office. She was screaming and growling the entire time. I felt like I was having some kind of crazy nightmare. My manager had called the police, and they thankfully got there before Shelby could get into our office through the ceiling. They pulled her down. An ambulance was also there to tend to her slit wrists. I don't know what happened to Shelby after that. I quit the next day and got into cleaning houses instead. AT&T retail service was just not for me. One time, when I was working for AT&T, we had a customer come in and try to return a broken phone. I asked if she had any insurance on it, and she said no, but she bought the phone yesterday and still should be able to return it. I worked yesterday, and I did not recognize this girl at all. I asked to see her receipt. She pulled it out and showed me a Verizon store receipt. I politely told her that this phone was purchased from a Verizon store and needs to be returned with them. She did not like that answer. She proceeded to throw the phone across the room and it smashed against the wall. She then grabbed a pair of scissors that were lying on my desk, and she said that she could easily kill me and everybody else who worked here. And at this point, I told her that she needs to leave or else I'm calling the cops. The lady stares at me in violent anger, takes the scissors with her, and storms out the front door. Me and my co-workers watch as she crosses the street and down the road out of sight. This happened almost 20 minutes into my shift that morning, and I still had the rest of my shift to go. The day went by quick. We were pretty busy the rest of the day. When I clocked out, I walked to my car, which was parked in the far side of the shopping complex where my AT&T store was. But when I got to my car, I nearly fainted. Every tire of my Honda Accord was flat. My windshield was smashed with a brick. But attached to the brick was a note. It read, "The customer is always right," and stapled to the note was the Verizon receipt from the crazy lady. I of course called the police and wanted to press charges. And to this day, they still have not caught her. And believe me when I say, working in retail can be hell.